Our Prime Minister was on a 5-nation tour which started on July 2 and he has now reached Namibia, culminating his visit to the Global South. Hello and welcome to Drishti IAS. My name is Saloni Nankyolier and today we will discuss India-Namibia bilateral ties because this is an important topic for GS Paper 2 of International Relations. And because Namibia has been in news so much, the geography of Namibia also becomes very important from prelims point of view. So before we dive into today's discussion, let us quickly revise the basic features of Namibia. So Namibia as a country is present on the southwestern part of Africa and is named after Namib Desert, which is on the western part of Namibia. There are some important rivers which are River Orange, which forms the boundary between Namibia and South Africa, River Okavango, which is a border between Namibia and Angola and Namibia and Botswana, and River Romatako, which flows in Namibia. The highest mountain peak of Namibia is Brandberg Mountain, which is 2573 meters high, and there is an important national park, which is the Etosha National Park. If we see, the Tropic of Capricorn passes through Namibia, which tells us that this country has huge reserves of solar energy. So these were some basic features about Namibia. Please go through its map for a detailed understanding of this place. And now let us start with today's discussion. So our Prime Minister's visit to Namibia is a significant one in itself because nearly after 3 decades is any Indian Prime Minister visiting the region. And then in 2016 by the then President Mr. Pranab Mukherjee. And since July 2, our Prime Minister has been on a 5-nation visit which are Ghana, Argentina, Namibia, Trinidad and Tobago and Brazil. All are the countries of Global South. And Global South as a term is used to refer to the least developed nations or the developing nations which have high levels of unemployment, poverty, less industrialization, and India always has had a commitment of honoring global South-South cooperation. And that is the reason that our Prime Minister was on a visit of all these 5 nations. And right now also with Namibia, PM Modi is looking at a multi-sectoral partnership. So there is not a specific domain in mind. There is a multi-sectoral partnership across different domains like trade and investment, education, healthcare, pharmaceuticals, solar energy, renewable energy, and a lot more things. So to understand India-Namibia bilateral relations, we'll have to look at the historical background of their friendship. And both these countries, they have a shared colonial past. So India was a colony of Britain, but Namibia also was first a colony of Germany and then South Africa. So both these countries have faced the horrific history of colonization. Namibia in fact has faced genocide, it has faced apartheid, which is a discrimination against color, and India has always stood against colonization. So that is the reason that India raised its voice for Namibia's independence as early as 1946 at the United Nations. So we've always supported Namibia's freedom. In fact, we also provided support to SWAPO, which is Southwest Africa People's Organization. So this was the political organization which was fighting for Namibia's freedom, Namibia's independence, and we have always provided monetary support, moral support to this political organization. Post-independence also, we've had a strong partnership with Namibia. So Namibia got its independence in 1990, and as soon as it got its independence, India established a High Commission in Namibia. And in 1994, Namibia also established an embassy in New Delhi. So these ties have continued post-independence also, and we have strong people-to-people ties with Namibia. Because the first president of Namibia, who was Sam Nujoko, he has always credited India because he was a founding father of SWAPO also, and he has always credited India for supporting Namibia in its freedom struggle. So we have strong people-to-people ties, and our ties have continued post-independence also. And if we look at the high-level visits and strategic dialogues, so Sam Nujoko visited India as many as 11 times. In fact, in 1998, when Shri Atal Bihari Vajpayee visited Namibia, recall what happened in 1998, we had just conducted our nuclear tests. So there was a lot of condemnation from the Western world, and in order to gain support for the non-alignment movement that India was spearheading, we had visited Namibia, and Namibia had offered its support. So this tells us that the leaders of both the nations have always been in amicable terms, and we've always had strong partnership with Namibia. Now, if we look at the key pillars of India-Namibia relations, there are many, but the most important ones are critical minerals and rare earth metals. So Namibia is huge uranium reserves. In fact, it is the third largest uranium producer in the world. And we know India is very strong on its nuclear energy program, but we do not have a lot of uranium reserves. In fact, we have only 1 to 2% of the global uranium reserves versus Namibia, which is the third largest producer of uranium in the world. So we can benefit a lot from this partnership. Then it also has diamonds and zinc. So zinc is going to be used in our semiconductor industry. So there are critical minerals and rare earth minerals that Namibia has, and India can benefit from that. Second is the trade and investment. So we do a lot of import and export with Namibia. We export vaccines, pharmaceuticals and cereals to Namibia. And what do we import? We import mineral oils and we import uranium. So our bilateral ties here also are very strong. Then we have capacity building programs with Namibia. If you recall, there is an ITEC, which is the Indian Technical and Economic Corporation, that is responsible for providing capacity building to international professionals and civil servants. So Namibia benefits a lot from India's program, which is under ITEC. And the fourth is education. So in the University of Namibia, or UNAM, there is an India wing. This India wing was fully funded and established by India, and this helps in the construction of more facilities in the campus of University of Namibia. So there are two facilities that India opened, which were the mining and engineering facility and the information technology facility. So this tells us that India has always been strong in educational partnership, in technological partnership, and Namibia has also benefited from this type of investment. Now, economic cooperation and trade figures, we will see that there was a 654 million two-way trade in just 8 months, April to November 2023, and this reflects an economic relationship with nearly 178% of growth. So our trade and investment has always been strong with Namibia. India exports pharmaceuticals, machinery and cereals, and it imports mineral oil and metals. In fact, India gifted COVID vaccines and also provided rice during droughts. So this tells us that India provides humanitarian support, developmental assistance also to Namibia in times of need, and this has always improved India's goodwill. A soft power diplomacy, India's goodwill has always been in the limelight because of the humanitarian aid that we provide to different African nations, including Namibia. Now, if we look at a special initiative or a special kind of diplomacy that we have had with Namibia, we cannot forget the cheetah initiative or the cheetah diplomacy, because cheetah became extinct from India in 1952. And in order to reintroduce cheetah into our biodiversity, we first relied on Namibia. So cheetahs were introduced in the Kuno National Park, which is in Madhya Pradesh. And this tells us that India has had environmental and ecological partnerships also with Namibia. This tells us about the cultural and ecological restoration, and the soft power of India was in action here because Namibia, it agreed to give its cheetahs, to reintroduce cheetahs into the Indian subcontinent, and this established strong ties in the environmental and ecological sector also. In fact, after Namibia, we also got some cheetahs from South Africa, and these two nations, they showcased our ecological partnership. But an important question here is China's action in Africa, because China has been aggressive in expanding its presence across different subcontinents, and Africa is no exception. So if we look at a comparison here, first in terms of trade, China is the first or the largest trading partner for Namibia, whereas India is the fourth largest, but it is rising. But you will have to look at the difference here, that China is the first, but India is the fourth largest here in terms of trade and investment. But we will have to look at the strategy followed by both the countries. China relies on something which is known as debt financing. And what is debt financing? So under its Belt and Road Initiative, it provides loans to these least developed nations or the developing countries at exorbitant rates. And when these countries, they fail to repay the loans, so in order to repay them, they have to take more loans from China. So this is a debt financing trap that they find themselves placed in. And this is the strategy that China follows. Versus what India follows is developmental partnership. So we already saw that India focuses on capacity building, on technological advancement, on local ownership. So we also provide grants, but we do not make countries fall into debt financing traps. So India follows a developmental kind of a partnership where both the countries, they benefit from each other and they establish themselves as strong partners both in materialistic terms as well as in the soft power, diplomatic, humanitarian terms also. And China focuses solely on infrastructure-centric growth, whereas India focuses on people-centric growth. In fact, our Prime Minister has also said that the focus of India is on the Africans, on every man, woman and child of Africa. So we're not focusing only on infrastructure-led development, we are focusing on strengthening our people-to-people ties. And this gives us a better image in the global scenario in terms of Namibia also and other African countries. India has a better image because it has more goodwill compared to China, which focuses only on infrastructure development and that too through debt financing. And we can benefit from the historical friendship that we have with Namibia and also the multi-sectoral partnership that our Prime Minister is now looking at. That was all for today's video. So the road ahead for India is that we need to scale up our mineral and energy cooperation and focus more on our capacity building and educational programs which are under ITEC. We need to boost our infrastructure and digital connectivity, enhance our people-to-people ties by providing more humanitarian support or developmental assistance, and geopolitical alignment in the global south because these are important nations. Africa is a very important continent. It has 54 votes in the United Nations. So it becomes automatically important for any country that is focusing on becoming a global power. So in order to have our voice in G20, in BRICS, we need to strengthen our ties with other African nations. And we need to balance China's influence with ethical engagement. China focuses only on infrastructure-centric approach. So what should India do? India should have value-based, development-based approach, and this is going to do what? This is going to increase our moral goodwill and this is going to place us in a good light in the terms of these countries. So that was all for today's video. I hope you enjoyed the discussion. This is an important topic from mains point of view also. So today we will look at a practice question for both prelims and mains. With reference to India-Namibia relations, consider the following statements. 1. India raised the issue of Namibia's independence in United Nations General Assembly before Namibia gained independence. 2. India and Namibia recently signed a memorandum of understanding for the translocation of cheetahs to India. 3. India's investment in Namibia are focused on agriculture and healthcare sectors only. For which of the statements above is or are correct? A. 1 and 2 only. B. 1 and 3 only. C. 2 only. Please provide your answers in the comment section and I will pin down the correct one. Also, let us look at a practice question for mains, which is India's engagement with Namibia is a reflection of its evolving Africa policy rooted in historical solidarity, strategic needs, and soft power diplomacy. Examine the significance of India-Namibia relationship in the context of India's larger outreach to the global south. Please practice this question in 250 words. So that was all for today's video. Until we meet the next time, please keep studying and keep revising.
For more informative content, like, share and subscribe, and do not forget to press the bell icon to get the notifications.